Hello, I'm Alexander FL Newberry. Just going to explain how to do this 8 plus standard change question, and I'm going to be using perspective line to explain the gap between the spend and the cash available. So we have Numberella, which has got £5. She buys 3 toys worth 25p each. How much change does she get? We're going to start out by figuring out the total cost of the toys. So it's 3 toys worth 25p each. So we can say 3 times 25, 3 lots of 25, what does that equal? Now, a couple of ways we can do this. We could do it as a legacy multiplication like this, 25 times 3. Most people will be familiar with that. 5 3s are 15, 2 3s are 6, add 1 is 7, giving us 75. Now, the mental arithmetic strategy which I would advise for exams where there's time pressure, i.e. all exams, is just to consider that this 25 is really 20 and 5, and then we're going to go 3 lots of 20, which equals 60, which we know because 3 times 2 equals 6, and then we're just going to multiply that 6 by 10. Okay, and then we also know that 3 times 5 is 15. We've got to do 60 plus 15. We're going to break that down again. We're going to imagine that the 15 is a 10 and a 5, and we're going to go 60 plus 10, 70, and 70 plus 5, 75. Now, all of this ideally is happening in your head, but I'm just breaking it down so you can see how it's meant to work. All right, so we know that we've spent 75p, and now we need to know the change. So we're going to use the perspective line here. We're going to start off up here with £5. We're going to think of it as 500 pence. All right, and down here at the bottom we're going to write 75p, because we need to know the gap between these. All right, so first job, we're going to take the easiest possible path. So we're going to find the first number that ends in 0 above 75, which is 80, so that gives us 80p. And then we're going to say, well, what's the gap between 75 and 80? Now, most people will probably know that that's 5 already by the time that they're 8 or 9, but if you don't, then feel free just to count it up in ones. 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, okay? Remember, the principle is just to keep making things easier until someone doesn't feel that they can't do it, because if they're feeling insecure about what they're being asked to do, then they're not going to engage properly with the question, and they won't really learn it either because they're anxious, and secretly they probably wish they could do something else instead. All right, so we're always going to try and make things feel easy enough so that people can access it, and then actually calculation is enjoyable. And of course, as soon as you make something fun, people will learn it more quickly and they'll want to do it again. So that's really the principle we're looking for when we're teaching maths like this. Anyway, I digress. So above 80, where are we going to go to next? Well, again, unless someone is really uncertain, we're going to go up to the 100. Okay, and we're probably going to know, if we've learned our number bonds to 10 properly, we know that 8 plus 2 is 10, and so by extension 80 plus 20 is 100. If you need to, you can of course break it down, put the 90 in there and make it 2 little gaps of 10. And then from 100 to 500, how much is that? Well, if we know that 1 plus 4 is 5, then we know that 100 plus 400 is 500. Okay, so now we can write our final gap up here, which is 400. Again, if you need to, you can do the 200, 300, 400, and you can break it into these smaller gaps. Okay, I'm just going to go with this big gap of 400. So starting with the biggest number, remember the pyramid principle. Did the Egyptians build pyramids with the point at the bottom? No, we always start with the biggest number, it just makes sense. Okay, so we're going to start with the 400, then the 20, then the 5. We're going to go 400 plus 20 is 420, and 420 plus 5 is 425. Okay, so it's 425 pence. Now, do we know what that is in pounds? Do we have to say it in pounds? Does it matter? Well, the question doesn't specify. If we want to, 425 pence is equal to £4.25. Okay. Now, how do we know that? Well, we need to understand that if we have £1, we've got 100 pence, and we need to understand how to get between those two things, right? So I'm going to draw out a couple of columns. There's pounds, there's pence. Let's just ask, what do we do to 1 to turn it into 100? We times it by 100. And if we've got the pence, what do we do to turn them into 1? We've got to divide it by 100. Now, it's sort of a separate video to start talking about moving the decimal point. But just quickly, if we start out with 425p and we know that the decimal point is here, then just remember the quick rule. If we're dividing, the point is going to move to the left. If we're timesing, the point is going to move to the right. Now, if we're dividing by 100, we say how many zeros are there? And there are 2 zeros, and that is how many columns the point has to move. So it's going to go 1 column. Imagine your columns are in here. And then it's going to go another column. So according to how many zeros there are in the number you're dividing by, that is how many columns the point has to jump. Okay, the dot has to jump. So we end up with our answer of £4.25. Okay, so quite a lot packed into that little video, but those are the methods that I would recommend using for working out this question. And remember, keep making it easier until the kid can do it with a smile on their face.